Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Science Thursday, we're going to talk about hate of rooftop solar. So let's dive deep into it. Now, yes, I'm aware and I was like re-excited about this topic, so to say, reincarnated about this topic after the video. I have linked that video down below, which was the quote-unquote, the reignition, so to say, because I have heard this sort of same thing long ago from Australia. So what is it? What is this hatred that is randomly coming out of nowhere? The hatred is it's only for rich people and it causes poor people suffering. Now, to be frank, that's 100% of reality. So I do not know why the heck that is a thing. But the idea is, the core essence is that the rich people are not paying their fair share, meaning they're supposed to pay a very large amount of money. They are not paying very large amount of money, and that is causing load on poor people who cannot afford as is. So they are stuck in a position where it's like, dude, rich people are just eating out of there, and poor people are like, dude, we have to keep the grid alive, so we have to overpay for compensating you. So basically, we were poor, now we are hyper poor. So that's the whole reality. So it also creates a basically forcible scenario where cost of basically not have goes up. So meaning you cannot even afford electricity at that point in time. Australia was the first time where I heard about this sort of thing. That was like, if everybody's actually started to do, solar, it will like kill the grid and all that. That's the first time I heard of it. The USA one that is gaining attention recently, which I was so shocked from. I was like, seriously? So it's one of those things. And basically the main fear, the grand total fear is like rich will remove poor from grid because they will not be able to attach to a grid or even use its services. It would be so expensive. So that's the hate reason. There's like it's a tool for rich people which harms poor people. So it has like perfect storm. So what's the logic behind it? Now be mindful, if you ever told anyone flat out lie, like this is a lie, they will reject it. But if you mix some truth, it goes down easy, so to say. So the idea is, the factual reality is that grid is expensive. Like this puppy, they are not cheap, so to say. Be it transformer, be it substation, they are not cheap. Flat out, they cost a boatload of money with a truckload of money. So it's a seriously large amount of money that goes into making them, expanding them, because again, they have to grow with the population, they have to grow with the public demand. So expanding also consumes a lot of money. Maintenance, this is a fixed cost, so that always goes up. And the fixed cost is the biggest reason. Is like whether you're using or not, this thing is still here. For example, let's say this is a switch yard that is supposed to handle, let's say, 10 megawatt of energy going in or out. Awesome, everything is awesome. But here still, what is the maintenance cost if you are only selling 1 megawatt of electricity? Same. It's the same. You're just suffering more. So that's the reality of it. There are fixed costs. That's the factual truth. A, they are very expensive. B, they have fixed cost, especially with personnel, so to say. And not to mention, their cost goes up because of inflation. So they may be like, hey, I'm spending 1 million on like maintenance. That will literally become 2 million, even if machines are all fine, right? Simply because the people salaries have to go up. Of course, it goes a very small percentage, but it always does. And they can show it. Companies can show it in their textbook, where it's like, bro, expenditure went up. So only rich can get it, because again, so I'm not getting solar simply because I'm not rich enough. Again, I do need to have solar simply because, again, in my case, I need to have it, but again, can't afford it. So only rich can get solar now, and poor have to pay more to compensate for this cost. Basically, right now rich are compensating for it, but then poor people have to compensate for it because rich people are like, buy, they're eating it out of there. So that's a factual truth, the truth mixed into that hatred. That's why it's so potent and it's not dying. That's why I said it. I was shocked that this is a recent thing happening again in USA. I was like thinking about Australia, because again, they have like a lot of remote people which have bad electricity. There are more and more people are jumping into solar, and that way because of necessity. And they are like, yeah, if everybody actually started to do that, it's like, it's gonna poof out electrical grid and all that. Did not happen. That was years ago, so to say. So that's the logic. There is some truth to that, but let's dive deep into it. So what's the lie? The lie is the fact that every country that I know of course, there is like around 200 countries. You could find some country that does not have this, but almost all countries have fixed cost for this exact reason. Fixed cost for this exact precise reason they have it. The cost you will pay whether you are using it or not. For example, let's say you are running a school, you are consuming GG amounts of electricity, but here's the summer vacation happens. You disconnect the power bar, so to say. You're literally, the whole school is 100% here. There is no connection that sends power there. Will you get a bill? Yes. Will it be more than zero? Absolutely. There will be fixed cost. whether you use it or not, you still have to pay. And that's the reason for it. And be mindful, this part, basically the fixed charges, so to say, it also grows with time. For example, if I compare the fixed charges of 1990, it's lower compared to basically 2000, it's lower than compared to basically 2010, it's lower than compared to 2020. So it also goes up. And that's the primary reason why government, companies, all of them makes this a reality. And this also goes up by your load amount. For example, if you are a simple individual, you are consuming one phase of power, so to say, it's like, okay, you have X amount of charge. If you are triple phase consumer, the power, the fixed cost goes up. Now, if you are a high voltage triple phase consumer, where they may be sending you 11 kV directly to your location, at that point in time, your fixed charge would be exponentially higher. So it's one of those things that, yes, we know this is an issue, and yes, we have solved this from day one. Everybody knew this. We figured it out. Like, we got this. We got this. And there is another aspect of it. Like, the more you consume, the more you have to pay, exponentially more. So, for example, you have fixed charges. This is the Indian breakdown. And be mindful, this breakdown is not up to date, not in every state, but this should give you a rough context of it. So, fixed charges, let's say 100 rupees. This is going to come in your electric bill whether you use it or not. Okay, so that is 100 there. So if, let's say, for example, you consume only from 0 to 150 units, let's say your bill came to exactly 149 units, you will be paying around 5.50 paise, basically 5 rupees 50 paise per unit of electricity you consumed. So that's okay. But what if you consumed a bit more? So anytime you exceed that unit count, now you are from 151 to 300 units of electricity, you have to pay 6 rupees per unit. It's got a bit more expensive. Now same goes up to 500. At that point, you end up in 7 rupees. So you started with 550, now you are at 7. So that happens. And even for industrial user, those numbers start at this point in time. So it's ludicrously expensive for them. It's there from day one. So you may have hey, I have a power plant, and let's say for some reason production has stalled and you're like shutting it down, let's say in Corona time, they still got big ass electric bill, even though they were not consuming zero. They were not consuming at all. They are like, here's your bill. Sir, we were physically not there. We physically disconnected the bus bar. No, sir, you still have to pay. And GG amounts of money, like, trust me. Especially at high voltage consumer, that puppy is expensive. So that's there. Now, one thing you have to understand, we have figured it out, like from day one, we have figured it out. And it's the same. This whole idea of hatred towards solar is exactly the same if you go from low energy efficiency to high energy efficiency appliances. For example, in India, there is a lot of push into going 5-star rating. 5-star rating allows us to visualize basically that this equipment, for example, air condition, is consuming less power than the previous model. Or in, let's say, if the models are in the same year and one has like 4-star, one has 5-star, you will know for a fact that 5-star is more energy efficient. Now here's the deal. What if you are running a hotel, okay, and you are paying X amount of energy into bill, everything is fine, everything is dandy, but let's say you had a good year, let's say every few years you had a cold period, then you had like a really good period, you made some really money. Now you're like, hey, what if I invest into upgrading the hotel infrastructure? Now you have upgraded all of them with brand new air conditioner that consumes let's say half the power. Especially if it's an old air conditioner, that's a big jump. So half the power consumption. Companies will still cry. It's like, bro, we are not selling you electricity, we are not making money. But here's the deal, that's not true. Why? We have fixed charges just for that. Whether you use it or not use it, the fixed charges is there just for that. So if you take a step to reduce your consumption, people are like, awesome. Solar tricks people into thinking it's like, it's not the same thing. That's how people are like, oh no, but it actually forces the poor becomes more poor and more poor, and your blood pressure goes up, then you fight. It's like, no. It's the exact same thing if basically every Indian household goes from resistive heating to basically using what I have, heat pump, so to say. It will go down exactly. Actually, this will have much bigger impact. So that's the reality of it. It's just the same if you are buying devices that are far more energy efficient. Only this part is shrinking, nothing more than that. Like, this is fixed. This will keep growing with inflation. This part will go down. Nothing more will happen. And here's the deal. Selling reduces the basically need to buy from plant. What does that mean? That simply means there is generally 3 agents, so to say. Agent number 1, that is producing the power producer. Agent number B, that is basically the people who are facilitating the transfer from generation station to you. Basically, they are the main money maker. And then you. Now, if you are sending energy back to the grid. What does that mean? That simply means, does that energy go to the power plant? Hell no. What would be the point of it? What actually happens is the load on those power plant goes down. Load that is being bought by the electric companies. Electric companies like, hey, we are consuming 10 megawatt of power, they will buy 10 megawatt of. If they see, hey, we are only consuming 8 megawatt of power, because again 2 megawatt is being dumped into the system, they'll reduce that generation capacity. It's not like, oh, we are still buying 10 and we are wasting 2. No, it's just like, why will we consume it if we are not using it? So that's the whole reality. So it's not like, oh, the energy dumped into the system is causing wastage. No, it just causes those generators to not work their ass off. It's like, hey, oh, instead of 10 megawatt load, I only have 2 megawatt load. So selling literally has no effect on them. It only helps them make more money by saving money on the buying front. Basically, instead of buying X amount, they're like, hey, X minus 20% or X minus 50%. That's all that's happening here. And what about the money the companies pay to you for that service? That's why basically grid tie inverter system actually runs your meter in reverse. The reason for that is like it incentivizes people to get into solar, and it actually transfers a little bit. Be mindful, let's say they saved 1 million. The target is at least give like 1/10 of that to the customer that actually sell you the thing. And again, it logically makes sense. It has to be this way. So for example, because again, you are still the power holder, you still the one who is risking everything. So there is a reason government will allow it. So if you buy energy from utility, that could be, let's say 10, whatever unit, 10 cent, $10, 10 rupee, whatever have you, bought it at 10. Awesome. If your solar energy dumps back, good luck finding 10 out of it. You will, most of the time, you will get 5. Most of the time. And it's by design. We know this, we designed it in that exact way. Now, does that mean the companies are losing money because they have to give 5? No. I can guarantee you they are saving more than that. Otherwise, they will not give you this. And in the places where they do not, like for some example, energy is very expensive to buy, this number would be much smaller to reflect that. So all that means is instead of having this much saving, they have this much saving, but they still have savings. And most of the time, realistically, majority of the time when I'm looking at the power bills, they don't actually like the idea of paying. They will show in your bill, it's like, they don't like the idea of paying. So what they do, they credit it into your next month. They keep crediting it. Like you will never able to get the money out unless you are a solar seller, where it's like, yeah, I'm a power plant that sells power. That's a different thing. But in normal household case, most of the time, even if on paper they have it, they will generally, hey, this just carries it forward. So companies are not suffering at all. All it's happening is instead of buying, let's say, 3rd yacht, they are like, we have to be happy with like 2 yachts. Oh, the poverty, man, so poor. I can only deal with like 2 yachts. I'm like, whew. Can you even imagine that much poverty? Whew. That's serious poverty. That's all is happening. Like from day one, we fixed this problem, and everybody randomly forgot that we have fixed this problem. That's the lie. Now question becomes, why? They are not dumb people. Why they are doing it? Well, reality is it's all about profit and control. Of course, every company wants to increase their profit, so they will do everything in their power to increase their profit. But control is also an interesting part. Profit and control, that's like, we're gonna pour millions of dollars in campaigns just to brain damage you. So that's a very serious cocktail, so to say. And their cost is covered. Do not worry about the cost. That's why if they are building new lines, you may find, hey, the price went up, the base price, I'm saying. So cost is covered. Do not worry about that. And they are making profit. Don't even worry about that. It's just that they want more. Instead of like, I told you, like instead of 2 yards, they're like, hey, I want 3rd yard. But they're like, nah, sir, you have to manage with 2 yards. It's like, oh, the poverty. So it's one of those things. And ignorance is super easy to exploit. Like think about this, like how many people actually thought it's exact same thing as going from 1-star air condition to 5-star air condition. Exact same thing. Either I do that or I put solar. Exact same thing. And prosumers are very hard to control. This is a critical aspect. Prosumers put everything under check, so to say. There is a checks and balance here. So if, let's say, this is a photograph from India's largest solar rooftop installation. Again, it's not one roof, but it's like a colony, so to say. It has around 11 megawatt of capacity. So if they have 11 megawatt of dumping capacity, that simply means if power companies are like, hey, we're going to increase your charges, this household will be like, okay, we'll survive. We'll increase more. It's like, oh, okay, it's getting painful. We'll increase it more. You know what? Just buy the battery. Buy. So that gives them a leverage where they're like, dude, I have some time. Imagine it this way, like your electricity bill grew by 10 folds. You'll be like, bro, I'm out. You can actually do that. I'm out because you have solar. So it's one of those things. Prosumers keeps things under check. And be mindful, generally people who are prosumers, basically who have solar, generally they are also big consumers. That's why they do it in the day one. That's why people do solar. And like, again, if my household did not need air conditioner, again, this place gets hot, as in like inside temperature easily crosses 34 degrees Celsius. Outside temperature touches 50 degrees Celsius. So yes, in this place we need air conditioner, otherwise poof. So in those sort of scenario, if my energy consumption, let's say this place was in colder area and did not need that, I would not need solar. But I need solar now simply because my cost, basically per month cost, is going high. So prosumers is like a very important step where they can, like, keep things in check for everyone. They are the like fail safe where it's like, no, we can just keep, because be mindful, government cannot reinforce it. Government cannot go to a power provider and it's like, bro, you have to sell electricity at lower price. They're like, bye. So this is the one thing you have to understand. And what does that mean? That simply means solar gives you an option. If somebody jacks up the price, you can yeet out of there. And it also forces them to use the profit they made instead of just buying yachts. They're like, hey, I'm already a millionaire. How about I take the money, invest into the plants? So generally this is the time where companies invest into making better plants. For example, you are consuming same amount of coal, let's say 5 trains of coals per month, and then you're like, okay, we are consuming same amount but we are producing more because we introduced into more efficient technologies, we refine the process and all that. Okay, those you have to give them incentive to do that. So incentive is, yeah, increase your profit by reducing your expenditure, as in your fuel expenditure, because that's controlled externally, they cannot control it. So that incentivizes that. How about CO2 emission? It actually goes down. We have figured it out. Solar panel is a mature technology that its emission is offset like in the first 2 to 3 years. Basically, how much CO2 you released into the atmosphere, it's offset in like 2 to 3 years of energy production. After that, it's just free energy. Because what does that mean? Free energy, so to say, in this context? In context means the amount of units of electricity that you are gaining. There is no other way to gain that energy without producing less CO2. You will never have zero CO2. Let that be very clear. You will never have zero CO2, but you will have less. So for example, you're consuming from coal, you will be releasing, let's say, 700 grams of carbon dioxide per unit of electricity. So that goes down. And like it always goes down. It will never go to absolute zero. It will only go down to, let's say, in case of solar and wind, I think it's very low at like 10, but it never goes to zero. So CO2 footprint goes down for all of us. So that's a desirable thing. And this is why these companies want to increase the ROI. For example, if government subsidizes it, and that's what it's all about. It's just making hurdles. Basically, big consumers, they're gonna still do solar thing. If more and more people started to do that, that puts some strain on power company where they're like, hey, my second yacht is not happening anymore. So for that reason, they want to make sure the ROI. For big people, it's a done deal. They have to do it. Like, they have to do it. For example, there was a company in South Africa. They literally were building a plant and they were like, they did not even consider electrical grid because the electrical grid there is useless, more useless than India. So they're like, they literally built everything around a giant ass solar farm and they were overproducing, they were giving it back to the grid. So that's how they were running. So for big users, it does not, it's not a competition there. For them, it's like, we have to do this. But if home users get it, it's like, yeah, now my even first yacht is in danger. So it's one of those things. The ROI, if they can keep increasing the ROI, if I tell you this solar plant has a ROI of basically 25 years, you're not going to buy it. If this plant has a ROI of 10 years, only big people can buy it. If this has ROI of 5 years, every Tom, Dick and Harry comes close to buying it. And this is what they want to push off. The ROI, basically how quickly you can be like, hey, this actually made sense to do. They want to push that. So people, basically all that will do is like give them absolute power and you cannot do anything about it. Your bill will still go up even though they are buying electricity mainly from solar farms and wind farms. So even if they are running on absolute green energy, you will still stuck. You will still be like, why the heck my bill keeps going up? So this is why they want to do that. It's about profit and control. Limiting your ability to be like, hey, don't F around with me too much. It's like, no, we want you to be completely submissive. So that's why they are doing it. So this is supposed to be a very clear-cut warning. Rooftop solar is a fragile industry. Let that be very clear. The solar industry itself is done. It's sorted. It's taken care of. At this point in time, it's producing energy at lower cost than coal. More and more people are investing into solar farm on their own without subsidies, and they are selling electricity while making profit. So that part is sorted, done. Go home. The issue is that rooftop solar still needs some more love, so to say. So why take care of this? Well, simple reason. It gives you freedom and it gives you power. So instead of like, hey, my bill is going up, it's like, hey, my bill is not going up. That's a good thing. and you have power. In my case, again, because I live in a very odd position of India, like yes, there are states in India which has zero power cuts, and there are other states lucky power. And if you see me sweating, because power is gone. No air conditioner, I'm running on inverter at this point in time. So again, in my case, I will actually have an air conditioner that works most of the time. So it gives power, it gives freedom, everybody wins. And if you do not, flat out, that's the harsh reality of it. That's why companies are pouring millions of dollars on brain damaging campaigns, is that you will suffer. You will be like, hey dude, why the heck my bill going up? Even though company could be like, hey, instead of buying like this X amount of coal energy, we bought like, Y amount of solar energy, and little bit we bought from, let's say, hydro dams, little bit we bought from, and all of those were cheaper, but your bill still will go up. So you will suffer, you will lose. So this is one of those things. And this is whole another aspect of it. If more and more people do rooftop solar, the price of that enterprise will go down. Be mindful, a giant solar farm, we sorted, that's done. But rooftop solar, that's a very niche case scenario. That number is not going down as much as it needs to go down. But when it will go down, more and more people use it. So that's why it has to go down in that. And this also has another niche case where you can take care of the second-hand battery market of EVs. EVs generally have battery that generally has lifespan of 10 years, so to say. So after 10 years, what do? You poof it. Well, you poof it from car, but you don't poof it completely. You take it into your household, use it as a battery backup system. It's like, shut up, I have another 10 years of life left. These battery banks that are used for cars, they are ludicrously overpowered. Of course, they have to be, because they are designed in such a way that you press accelerator, car disappears. So if your press accelerator, car does not disappear, you're like, bro, eat the battery. So, but here's the deal. In household, you rarely will have that kind of oomph load. So they're like, shut up, put it in my garage, I have electricity, don't have to worry about it. So it also has a very good use case of second EV battery packs, second life for EV battery packs. So it's a very cautious tale for all of us, that ignorance can easily be exploited, and we literally could be fighting just so some rich person can get second or third or fourth yacht and they can go to Russia. So this was my presentation on basically the hatred of rooftop solar. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show my extra disappointment. Please leave a comment, because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.